Hello everyone, in this week's video I'll be talking about differences between male and female anatomy. One thing I always struggled with when I was younger was my male characters looking girly because I drew girls way more than I drew boys. From what I read in my comment section, this is also something that many of you struggle with, so hopefully this video can help a little. Before we start, I want to say that there are tons of different body types and everyone is unique. I'm going to be talking about how males are generally drawn and how females are generally drawn, but that doesn't mean I think these things will apply for all people or body types. For example, I'm going to say males have wider shoulders than females. However, females can have wider shoulders than males. I'm saying this because sometimes people get mad at me when I talk about how I draw characters. They think I'm trying to say that everyone is like this or should be like this, but that's not what I'm saying. I plan to make a video on different body types, but for this video I'm going to keep things simple and talk about one female body type and one male body type. So remember, I'm talking about common differences that are seen when drawing males and females, but that doesn't mean I think they apply to everyone. Also, the characters I am using as examples are probably in their later teens, probably 18 or 19. Anyways, enough talking, let's get started. First, let's talk about the head. For girls, the jaw is more rounded and not as long. I also don't define the chin as much. Also, the nose is pretty minimalistic. I draw a line for the bridge of the nose and then a little dot. For boys, I define the features more. I make the jaw longer and more angular. I'll leave the chin area more flat. For the nose, I draw a line for the bridge and then dots for the nostrils. I define the rest of the nose with shading. Also, here's how I draw the noses in 3/4 view. For males, I make the bridge longer to make the nose more prominent. In profile view, I make the female's nose more curved and I leave more space for the eyes since they are larger. I also try to make the jawline softer. For the male, I make the features more angular like the jaw and nose. The nose bridge is straighter and the nose overall is bigger. I also define the brow bone a bit more. I don't need to leave as much space for the eyes since they are smaller. When drawing girls, I make the eyes very large and they are placed lower on the head. And for boys, I make them more narrow. They are also placed higher up on the head. I also give girls eyelashes. I will sometimes give males subtle tiny eyelashes along the bottom eyelash line. The neck. When drawing the neck, I make it wider on males. I'll also define things like the neck muscles and the Adam's apple, especially in profile view. For girls, I'll sometimes define the neck muscles depending on the pose. For the shoulders, I make them more narrow when drawing girls. I also don't define the collarbone and trap muscle as much. The torso. When it comes to drawing males and females, the torso is very important. This area is what really depicts a character as looking more masculine or feminine. So first, let's talk about the general shape. For females, I often draw a shape that is wide at both ends and thinner in the middle. The hips are much more prominent than on males. The waist is also higher up. I like to use circles when constructing the torso for females. On the other hand, for males, I like to use more square-like shapes. I draw a shape that is wider at the top and gets narrower towards the bottom. For males, the rib cage is more substantial than the hips. Now, one mistake I used to make is that I would give males like no hips. I would make the body taper and get really narrow. This makes it hard to place the legs because you don't have much room to place them. Males do have hips, but I try to be careful when drawing them because if I define them too much, the silhouette becomes more feminine. So first I have the torso taper until we get to the waist. On males, the waist is lower and less defined. Then it comes out a little for the hips. Now let's talk about the shape of the torso in profile view. For girls, the back goes out and then in by the waist and back out by the bum. The waist is very noticeable. When drawing a male, the bump out for the ribcage goes on for much longer. The waist is also lower and not as noticeable. The back shape comes out a little by the bum, but not nearly as much as it does for the girl. Now let's talk a little about the bum. For girls, the bum is often very rounded, and for boys, the bum is a little more flat at the top and rounded at the bottom. Oh, I almost forgot to talk about the chest. Obviously, the female chest is very different than the male's chest. One thing that would confuse me when I was younger was how the breasts would connect to the body. So when drawing the female chest area, it's important to keep the armpits in mind. So in front view, the armpit and chest, they're all kind of one line. Arms and legs. When drawing males and females, one thing I try to keep in mind is to make girls more soft and rounded and guys more angular and boxy. Keeping this in mind when drawing can help a lot. So when drawing things like the arms and legs for girls, I try to keep my lines curving and soft. And for boys, I try to draw more sharp and angular lines. I also try to define the muscles a bit more for male characters. Also, something else to keep in mind is that the wrists and ankles on males are often not as dainty. They are a bit wider and more sturdy looking. I don't totally know how to describe it. Also, the knees on males are also much more substantial and prominent, I guess. Hands. To be honest, I don't make my hands between my male characters and female characters very different. For boys, I will make them a little larger and I will define the knuckles a little bit more. But I'm not very good at drawing super manly hands. Feet. I'm not good at drawing feet, so I'm not going to try to act like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to those. I pretty much just make the feet bigger for males. I hardly draw feet without socks or shoes on. It's something I need to practice more. So those are all the tips I have for this video. Like I mentioned at the beginning, everyone is built differently and the things I talked about won't apply to everyone. But I hope this video was a bit helpful. Before I end this video, I want to say thank you so much to my patrons, including Andrew, Pisatera, Master Zero, Sarai, Hakoko, Tamalam, Dozar89, Rachel, Ravi, now from Academy of Games, Suzio, Robert, Ann, Eduardo, AJ, Nikki, Michael, Nari-chan, Dan, Panda Bear, Hollow Studio, Daniel, Aaron, and Patrick. Thank you so much for being a patron and for your support. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye! Also, the characters I'm using as examples are probably in their narrower. I can never say narrower. Narrower. I make them more narrow. For males, the rib cage is more For girls, the back goes out on Thank you so much to my patrons, including Andrew. Oh gosh, this is gonna be hard. Patreon rearranged all the patrons. Okay, before I end this video, I want to say thank you so much to my patrons, including No. Okay,